We're golden.
All right, guys. Welcome to, which I guess is now the 7th edition of 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes was created by myself, Larry Sanders, and Kevin Long. Larry, raise your hand. Kevin, raise your hand so everybody can see you guys. Me, Kevin, and Larry are 3 of Hometown's 10 junior partners. For those of you who might be new, Hometown Realty has about 320 to 330 real estate agents, and 10 of us serve as junior partners. And so we were challenged with the idea to come up with a new and improved training class. It's been kind of cool because of the whole coronavirus situation. We've been able to go virtual with it and really build a good community of like-minded individuals who are trying to make each other better, which is absolutely awesome. Larry mentioned this earlier when he was just kind of going over some housekeeping stuff. Kevin kicked off the first 4 months. That would be January through April, with a little bit of kind of the nuts and bolts of real estate, the what. Larry's diving a bit more into the why, and then I'm going to wrap it up starting in September with the last 4 months of more of the how. Today, Larry's going to talk a lot about systems and checklists. That might sound kind of boring to you guys, but just by a quick show of hands, the people that I can see, how many people have been to Quiznos before? Remember Quiznos? Y'all remember the little sub shop Quiznos? You know, an easy bake oven, right? You put something in, it comes out different. At Quiznos, I used to love it because you build this awesome sub, they put it in the toaster, go on through the conveyor belt, and it comes out and it's like it's a dream. It's like it is the perfectly toasted sub. A system and a checklist, weirdly, kind of works like that. You ratify a contract, you put it in the pipeline, and it comes out as a closed deal, okay? We're able to do that because we create, and most importantly, we implement systems so that all you do is follow a checklist from that point until closing. Systems can be implemented for anything. I'm sure Larry will talk to you guys about that. But what you'll learn is that systems and checklists are just another one of those boring fundamentals that the best of the best will continue to execute time and time again. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. It's very, very simple, but the best, they'll continue to execute. So with that, I'll turn it over to Larry.
Thanks, Ben. Well said. I think every coach that aspires to take a team to a championship puts a lot of preparation into how they're going to run their practices, right? Like, this is how we're going to start them. This is where we're going to be in the middle. Overall, this is the scheme we're going to follow. And although real estate certainly isn't a sport, it's still a competitive environment where your habits will take you as far as really you want to go, whether those are good habits or bad habits. So setting great expectations, you know, we tell clients a lot how our business works, right? Like, hopefully you're educating them on that. The flip side, though, is what we may not realize is that we really tell the tale with the experience that we give them. So if they feel that you ran their potential, their particular buyer or seller deal very smoothly, and it was never bumpy or anything like that, that is exactly the type of experience they're going to remember and relay to other people. And so that's the experience that we want to give them. But how do you do that, right? I think if you go into a blind, it can be very challenging. And although, like Ben said, you know, checklists are not, they're not fun, they're not sexy, they're not magic pill. They don't really jive with the way of the world right now. And that's also what makes them a tried and true effective tool to use. So today what we'll talk about, I'll share some of my team's checklists with you, the direct documents that we use to pick that low-hanging fruit, to generate more referrals. At this point, we're 90+% by referral. So maybe they are boring, but they certainly do work. The idea is to help you generate referrals while we're keeping your deals organized. A common complaint I hear from realtors is, hey, you know, by the time I put my fires out and I got my deal squared away, I was tapped out. I didn't feel like making any phone calls. I just kind of called it a day and went home. Well, what if Monday through Friday goes like that? What if 4 weeks consecutively goes like that, and you realize a month is gone and you haven't reached out to any clients, especially clients that would love to hear from you, just because you're so bogged down. So just remember, they really hear how our business is run by the experience that we give them. So when you're in the trenches, just remember, I've got a critical opportunity to leave them with a lasting impression of how I do business and how organized I am. Then we'll move on. You'll get some easy ways to consistently stay in touch with your client without the feeling of bothering them. I routinely hear from clients, hey, I don't like making a bunch of phone calls because, I don't want to bother people. Everywhere I go, and maybe you're different, but everywhere I go, somebody at an event I attend wants to talk to me about real estate. So I found over the years, it's actually more of that maybe in our heads than what's reality. But to get around that, I'm going to kind of give you some easy ways to stay in touch, and you'll never feel like a burden. We'll move on next to what I call my airplane analogy. I like to think of clients as passengers on an airplane, and not every passenger on an airplane is created equally, right? Some folks sit in coach, some folks sit in first class, and believe it or not, your databases should be formed the same way with a similar mentality. We'll talk about 13 pillars of focus. I came up with this as a tool to help agents that didn't necessarily have a strong influence in the area. A good example of this would be somebody that moved from another state and they were a successful realtor in that state, but they don't know the people locally that you and I might know. Doesn't mean they can't start a successful real estate business and be in it for the long haul. We'll show you some of our transaction submission checklists, both on the buying and listing side. And then we're going to have a testimonial from actually one of my team members, somebody that I think a lot of, but somebody also that has done a really good job of putting some systems and some checklists in place. And in my opinion, has got some good rewards for his efforts. So let's jump right into it. Y'all bear with me here. I am technology challenged, but I feel pretty good about this. Okay, so can everybody see this? It should say, y'all give me a bobblehead because I got everybody muted. Okay, so we'll start with a checklist, right? When you receive a referral, typically emotion runs high, very excited, and that's completely understandable. But this is a really critical time where you can seize the opportunity of low-hanging fruit, and you can really cultivate that single referral into a number of referrals. But above all, you can express gratitude for somebody that's out there taking care of you. I built my business based on referrals and gratitude, and I think it's a great way to do business. So I won't read line by line on here, but I want you guys to get the gist of it, right? I got a new referral. Of course, I need all the contact info. The only thing I'm going to say about this is, myself included, sometimes we take shortcuts. We say, okay, well, we don't have this one piece of information, but we'll get that at a later date. I want you guys to start maybe thinking as if that later date's not going to come, so I need to get it now. If I don't have their email address, I'm missing out on a critical way to reach out to them when and if they need me, or when and if I need them. So all of the info there. And again, we're recording this right now, so you want to take some good notes, but remember that this will be on the Hometown University as well. If you don't have a database manager, I'm a big Buffini nerd, and a few of us are, but it's not the only database manager out there. So the idea is you want to create a new profile in whatever database manager you have, and you want to actually make a note, typo there, sorry guys. You want to make a note of the potential transaction, right? I have a buyer that can't buy this year, but I know she's going to buy when her lease expires next year. So I'm actually going to go ahead and plug that in as a closing that will take place next year. Keeps them on my radar for the next 12 months as I follow up with them and stock my pipeline. Make an introductory phone call. Imagine that, right, guys? Rocket science stuff here. But you're doing it obviously to introduce yourself. You're also kind of going through the pre-qualification process, because the last thing you want to do, if you remember last class, is get in front of them and not have a lot of information that you need, and you realize you wasted your time and you don't have a real buyer or a real seller. Huge fan of notes. My best advice to you here is forget about your personal feelings about what your handwriting looks like. It's not as important to people as you think. The gesture is what's important. And if they get a note from you in the mail, it's going to mean something. If you get a note in the mail, typically it means something, and it's rarely negative, right? So write a personal note to the referral source, and maybe you include a gift. I don't typically do that because I know these folks want to support me and they don't expect anything in return other than my help when they need it. But you also want to write a personal note to the new referral, especially if you set an appointment that maybe is like 5 to 7 days in the future. Once you finish steps 1 through 5, it's always good to make an appointment with the referral source, right? Reasons for doing this would be, this may be an A+ client that I thought was a B client, but in actuality, this person is out in the streets trying to support my business. You set that appointment with them, have a quick coffee, and tell them a little bit more about your business. Dig deeper into that relationship. Make sure you don't finish that appointment without asking them what you can do to help them and their family. And then you finish up by sending an introductory email to the client, just like it says here, thanking them for everything, but also confirming the appointment. And this is the first chance for you to tell them how your business works. I know this stuff seems small, guys, and maybe I'm harping on it too much, but if they don't know how your business works, if they don't know you work by referral and you want referrals, they don't know to send referrals. So you got to keep this stuff in mind, even though it does seem pretty big. I got all these on the same sheet. So just like after you pin a sale, there's going to be some stuff that you want to do after you close a sale. Many of you do this, or at least a version of it, but take it further if you can, right? So you get a picture of them in front of the house at the walkthrough, but why, right? Not just to make a post on Facebook. This is an opportunity to send them, print that picture, put it in a note, or better yet, frame it and drop it off at their house as a pop-by. Do it at 6 months or do it at a year. And what you've told them is, hey, remember when I told you would be a priority well after the sale was done? You certainly are, and I'd love to work with more people like you. But sometimes a tangible expression of gratitude can jog their memory on what you told them once upon a time. And you may not have a TSG sign, since most of you aren't TSG, but if you have a real estate sign, if you have anything, just make sure you get a picture of them at closing, mostly for social media purposes there. Basic stuff for sellers there, kind of 101 stuff, but also things that sometimes can get forgotten about. And the idea is, when you're done, right, mail them a closing letter and then introduce them to your best business affiliates, but make sure they're the ones that are relevant to the client. A good example of this, they moved in and the HVAC system was a little wonky. Well, hopefully you have an HVAC affiliate that could come over there and give them a deal on service in the units, right? A chance for you to increase your business affiliate network and gain referrals from them, and a chance to dig deeper with your client and let them know that you're here for more than just real estate. 1 and 6 month anniversaries, put those in your calendar, right? That's an easy note, easy call, easy way to ask for referrals. Over time, you'll find that your calendar will take care of you if you do this stuff up front. For example, I show up on Mondays and I know a number of calls, a number of emails, a number of notes I can send that week based on the volume we've done over the years. Social media posts. I can't, as much as I say that social media can really take us down a rabbit hole, I think this is a very effective use of social media. But the idea is bringing everybody in with you. So tag, share, whatever you can to share it on the largest footprint possible. People love good news, and there's not a lot of that on social media, unfortunately. For anything that Zillow isn't, it is a place that people go to see how others feel about us as realtors. And if you look at a 5-star realtor versus a 1-star realtor, I can only assume, but I think most people are probably going to pick that 5-star realtor. So if you don't have those ratings out there, if you're not asking for that, again, it's a very easy thing to do. Pick up the phone, give them a shout, and try to get that done. Update their address in your database manager. Mark it closed in your database manager so you have the terms of the sale if you ever need to refer back to them. And then write a note to the client and everyone involved. Now, everyone involved is not just the person that referred them to you and the client themselves. There was a home inspector. There was somebody that handled the closing. There was somebody that handled the loan. In doing this, you're making yourself more competent in the eyes of the other people in our related industries. But you're also solidifying your habit of, hey, I'm going to express gratitude. I'm going to be sending notes. It's just going to be part of the fabric of my business. And then I think it's a good idea to email the clients that you have in your database that are located in or around the area of your sale. And maybe that's 5 miles in all direction, right? A broad area, but hey, I just sold a house in your area. I'm active in your area. And if you know anybody else that may want to achieve the same result, I'd love the opportunity to get in front of them. I know this stuff is dry, guys. I'm doing the best I can with it. The idea is maybe it's dry, but I do hope it's beneficial. So another common vent from realtors I talk with is very nervous to pick up the phone. I feel like I've called my database. I feel like if I just turn around and do that again, they're going to get upset at me. These are reasons. My team and I, we all got together. We came up with these reasons together. You can probably pick out the ones that I decided on. They're the nerdy ones, and then the ones that are fun definitely came from my teammates. But everyone has a birthday. Some people have a wedding anniversary. A lot of people have pets, right? After pending sale call, after close sale call, an invite to a client appreciation party or an event. Significant achievement heard about or noticed on social media, right? Like we all stalk people on Facebook. It's like the way of the world. But what if we actually took a note on something we saw and then acted on it to accent our real estate business? I think that's next level stuff there. Major family event, accomplishment. You know, they got married, they got engaged, they had a baby, all that good stuff. Personal favorite is before a pop by. I mean, heck, you could call them before you pop by, do the pop by, and then call them the next day and say, hey, it was great to see you, and write a note when you hung up with them. That's 4 contacts essentially from a pop by. Annual review. What an annual review is essentially is a broad market analysis of their home for everyone in your database each year if they want it. So each year I call everybody in my database and I ask them if they're interested in something like that. And you'd be very surprised the number of people that are curious about what their home is worth. You want to offer a tradesman or a contractor. Work on those business affiliate networks. They can be tremendous sources of not only referrals, but also a very good way to make you look good to your clients, right? So you're a professional, but the people that you refer them to, you want them to make you look even better. And then never forget when they bought the house. Never forget when they sold their house. You'd be surprised if you reach out 3 years after they closed, how much taken back they are that you still remember, when in actuality, it just might have been a note in your calendar, right? You didn't sit around thinking about them all day. You just put those systems in place and you automated them after that. So let's talk airlines, right? I want to give you my airline analogy. I have no idea where I got this from, but wherever I did, thank you and I love you. So this is kind of from a Buffini standpoint where you have an A+ client, an A client, a B client, and a C client, but you don't necessarily know where people go or where they should go long term. Most everybody that gets on the flight, I think, is a C. They're kind of on standby until they show you the ticket or they can provide some kind of evidence of where they're supposed to be seated, right? Kind of makes sense if you think about it. So they're on standby. You might be allowed on the plane, they might not, but they can't stand around for too long or they're just not going to be on the flight. Sounds tough, but remember, a C is not where you want to live. So a B, where I spend most of my time, is flying coach, right? Like they get a portion of our time. They get, in this case, they get a window seat, maybe an aisle seat. They're near the bathroom. They're not getting treated bad by any means, but they're certainly not getting what first class and business class are getting. So when you think about a client this way, this is a client that you think would refer you, but you feel like you're constantly coaching them and you don't really know that they're out there trying to support you, right? But you're going to do the right thing. You're going to stay in contact with them. And there's a very real chance that one day they could be in business class or first class. They just got to get tired of flying coach. So then we go business class status. And we're getting a little bit up there where they get everything about anything you do client appreciation wise, right? If you make birthday calls, you never miss theirs. If you are keeping up with clients' kids, you know their kids. But they get your attention right after the first class passengers. So they do not get the first of your attention, the most of your attention, or any of that. When you move on to your first class passengers, really it's more about them. They have shown you that they will go above and beyond for you time and time again. but what are you doing for them to give them a first-class passenger experience, right? What perks do they get? And the only way you're going to find that information out is if you talk with them, you have face-to-face conversations with them, and you really uncover the things about their life that matter. Once you have that information, you have all the tools you need to treat them like a first-class passenger. They can put their feet up, you'll get them a drink. I mean, they may get off the flight feeling better than they did when they got on. And if that's the case, your plan worked perfectly. So just remember, again, this stuff is going to be in YouTube for you, so it's not going anywhere. I just thought that analogy may help make it a little easier to understand. And y'all give me a little bobblehead. Has this been beneficial so far? All right, cool. No bad bobbleheads there, so I'll take it. We're going to move on to something I call the pillars of focus. So the pillars of focus, this is kind of weird, and I taught a hometown class. It was probably a year ago on this. But one of the things that I felt when I moved up to Glen Allen, Mechanicsville area is I grew up in the Tri-Cities. I don't know many people up here except the 24 people I went to school with, and I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to be able to start a business that's going to run by referral. I would love to tell you that I did this in the first 6 years of my business, but I didn't. This is something I've cultivated to help agents since then. But you can see that there's roughly 13 different categories on here. And what each category represents is an opportunity to do business if you take it seriously. But if you try to do all 13 of these, I don't think that you'll do them well. The idea here is to pick 6 of them that speak to you, that you feel like you can be effective at, and that you can set an action plan on. So for me, my coach found out really early that I don't do it as much as I used to, but like I like partying. I like having fun. I like social events and stuff. And so he, in those days, said, hey, well, we're going to cultivate a way for you to party your way to success. You're going to have business mixers. You're going to have client appreciation events. And yeah, man, you might have a drink in your hand the whole time you're there, but don't forget that primarily this is a business event. And I can't tell you how many referrals I've gotten as a result of having events like that, right? So that's the client appreciation pop by aspect. My man Dane is heavy on new construction, living that RCI life while he does resale business, right? Working expired for sale by owner, maybe a little bit more common, but there's all kinds of aspects of real estate that you can tap into that's much broader than just picking up the phone and vaguely calling somebody. So I'm not going to get deep into this stuff. It's here for you. Just remember, pick 6, rank them 1 to 6, and be prepared to put an action plan in place. So maybe if 3 is better for you to narrow your focus, pick the best 3. Again, action plan though, and try to pick something that you haven't been doing already. All right, so now we get into the juicy stuff here. This is really just stuff for our team that we came up with. Hometown, most of you know, hopefully this isn't like a mind-blowing event here, but Hometown has this thing called an info sheet that we have to turn in with every file. And the more detailed the info sheet is, the better the chances are of us getting paid on time, us not having audit checklists, or even just maybe hearing anything from your sales manager or anything like that. I think if you want to hear something from your sales manager, it's like, man, Benjamin, your files are clean. You know what I mean? But also knowing that when you close your deal, you're going to get paid expeditiously and you're not going to have to chase your tail to do it. That can feel tough, especially if you're trying to build your business. So you can see here, this is what we turn into our transaction coordinator, Whitney Cantali. And Whitney's first class, she probably doesn't actually need these anymore. But again, it's a habit, right? It's something that needs to be done every time. So make sure the file has all of these things, right? Some of them seem very basic, but what they are the pieces of the puzzle that are necessary to finish. Otherwise, you've got blanks, you have something that is going to take your attention at a later date, and you need to plan on being busy during that time, or productive. Productive is a much better word than busy. You need to be planning on being productive in the future so you don't have time to go back, right? all of the additional forms and disclosures. The best thing I can tell you here is when you ratify a contract, if you don't have all this stuff done, stop right then and there and take that extra half an hour, because it will pay a tremendous dividend down the road. But the top part is really what's necessary to turn in, and Hometown has a number of good checklists too. We came up with a second part though, because this is the kind of stuff that I think you want to visit on a weekly basis if you don't have administrative support, right? I need to stay on top of my closing date. I need to know what kind of loan type this is. When's the home inspection due, right? There's all these things right in front of you to take your worry away. Open your file. We keep most of this stuff on Google Drive. Open your file, get your checklist out, and just perform, right? It takes the guesswork out, and I think that's a value in it. If you have a well, okay, great. Well, you're going to need to do some water tests. Just having a form like this may help you educate yourself on what a water test is, or what are the different types of water tests required for different loan types, stuff like that. So that's on if we represent the buyer, and then we've got something similar on the listing side. And it's twofold here. We turn this sheet in when we turn the listing in, and then we turn the same sheet in again when we ratify the contract. Again, sure, this information is for Whitney, but it's also for me, it's for the client, and it's for easy reference if you ever need to find something on the fly, right? Makes us look more competent, more professional, dialed in the eyes of the client. All right. We've come up with this in the last year. Believe it or not, even though they act like it, most buyers and sellers don't know what we know about real estate. We do it every day. They do it, I think on average, and actually not on average, at most people move maybe 7 times in their life. But they don't know what they don't know, and even some of what they think they know may not be accurate. And that's where we need to refer back to last class, where we need to be a guide. I'm a huge, huge advocate for anticipating and initiating. Anticipate what they may need, anticipate how they may feel, anticipate what questions they have, and initiate action. So what to expect as the closing day approaches, you can see that we send this to them 14 to 17 days prior to closing. And if we need to go over anything, it's just a verification. It's not oh, I meant to tell you about that. This is what's happening. Guys, our clients are sitting around wondering what's going on. They really are. And they don't know unless the guide tells them. So be that person, right? This will be there for you. Come up with your version of it. What a great tool to put into action quickly, right? So you know what to tell them 10 to 14 days, setting expectations. Here's what we'll be doing. Here's what you need to be doing. 5 to 7 days, 24 to 48 hours, and then even a couple of little bugaboos. So if you find that you have some recurring problems on your deals, please keep in mind, I would add those things in that section. Not only is it going to make them more relevant to your clients, it's going to have you focus on it a little bit more, which is probably what you should be doing. All right, and that is the last little nerdy document I have for you guys. So bear with me. Look at that. All right, that was fun technology things. So we'll have a Q&A portion for the last probably 15 minutes today. What I want to do now is I want to transition and have one of my teammates speak to you, because I think sometimes, at least maybe in the early real estate years, I was terrified of management, and I looked at my peers as the ones that I would seek advice from. And maybe you're different, maybe you're not, right? But hearing it directly from one of your own, I think is gonna be really beneficial. But my favorite thing about this guy is he came along in a very similar way to how I did, where he had all the tools, all the motivation in the world, but there were just some things that weren't clicking. And he decided to make that change and adopt some of these things. And I'm excited for him to tell you more about that. So what we'll do is we'll pass this over to Terrell. And I've got actually, Terrell, you can take it away, buddy, because you've got the questions. I'm trying to unmute you.
You guys hear me?
That's me, dude.
One keeps muting and the other.
I'm really challenged with technology. Can you guys hear
Pretty
me?
sure that was.
Excellent. The first one, how long have I been in the business? This October will be 4 years. First 2 years, goose eggs. I guess I'll be the happy-go-lucky, friendly agent that's always popping doors, right? Loved people, loved real estate. At some times, I almost felt like Terrell was the guy that would tour properties with clients if their agent was busy, right? This included some family and friends, but really when I look back at it, I can't blame anybody but myself. I didn't have any systems, right? Unfortunately, very few times I've been asked if they had a pre-approval, right? So I'm literally going in there off of the strength of, I want to buy a property, I can afford X amount, this, that, third, going all over the metro area, Tri-Cities, follow up periodically with the clients just to find out they did close on a home. It's a pretty bad feeling, right? You put a lot of time in it, but at the end of the day, I got to look at myself. I'm the blame for it. I didn't have any systems, any checklists. What Larry has given us, guys, is serious, right? It's something to help us. And one of the better things to do besides close a deal is find out if we need to get somebody off the fence, find out if they're a true buyer, a true seller, or they're just kicking tires, right? It saves everybody's time and also helps with your reputation. Second question. Actually, I've already addressed that. What did it look like before adaptive systems? Apologize. Third, it's helped me a lot. So, you know, Larry is our leader, but just being fair, right? It helps. Buyer's consultation, he's big on it. It does a lot for you. Find out what the needs are, what the motivation, what the wants. If not, we all as humans, we can chase what we want, right? I think about the funnel system when it comes to real estate. We start up wide and start streamlining down wants, needs. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page. It might be a situation in which there's more than one buyer that's going to show up on that loan, right? We need to make sure everybody's dialed in, whether it's 2 or 3 people and the agent. This person might want to be in the city over here. We're shopping in the city just to find out the significant other may actually just want to stay in the suburbs. We're going to play tug of war. We got to get everybody on the same page. Find a good lender. Do they have a designated lender? Or we're going to bring one of our partnered lenders, one of our affiliates, etc. All of these are key things. The more questions we can have answered at that buyer's consultation is an easy way to keep everybody accountable. I sit back and think about times when Larry and I pull up, when there's a miscommunication. You know, it's a different way of structuring things, but when things get a little hairy, hey, I thought we're on the same page with X, Y, Z. It's easy to have a conversation that way. Pipeline is looking a lot better for me. A lot of the business for me is by referral, believe it or not. When you start showing people you're serious, you have a checklist, you have systems, they start to see you. They will go to work for you, right? They will go to work for you. One of the best things, one of the best feelings is to have somebody that sings your name out in the street and always looks for an opportunity to put business in front of you. Whether we close or not, that's a different story. Getting the opportunity to score was key. Hopefully that helped you a little bit. I know I can get wordy at times, but those are some things I've been experiencing. Again, October will be 4 years, and looking forward to the next quite a few years in real estate.
Yeah, appreciate that, Terrell. There's Dane too. So what Terrell and I have in common there, you know, I had a year there where I had a goose egg and closed business too, and it wasn't my first couple of years either. It was actually a year that came along later. I think it might have been year 4 or 5. But the idea here is, you know, like my man Dane says, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So we have the tools and we have the motivation, but if we don't put any of that into action the way that Terrell does, we're going to continue achieving the same result. You don't even have to guess that. It will be that way. But if you're willing to adapt, if you're willing to step slightly out of that comfort zone and do some of this boring stuff, do some of this stuff that's not sexy, right? Like everything is waiting on the other side of discipline, everything you're looking for. So you don't have to live a rigid disciplined life, but this kind of stuff actually does make your life easier. When we pin a deal, we grab a checklist, we make sure we have all the forms, and then we turn it in. When it's time to get paid, we get paid. We don't have to fight or make a bunch of phone calls and stuff like that. And because our clients are kept in the loop and consistently communicated with, they always know how our business works, where they can actually tell others instead of us having to tell others. So Terrell's right. If you have, if you have 5 walking billboards out there for you, you have the ability to do, I would say, between 10 and 15 transactions a year by just staying tight with those people and letting them know that you're serious about what you do, or showing them that you're serious about what you do. But what Terrell didn't tell you, he may have had those 2 years where, like he said, you have a goose egg for those years, but Terrell's going to close between 15 and 20 deals this year. And what Terrell's going to do next year is going to be greater than the year before. And that trend's not going to stop. But it's a testament to him making those changes, right? And if I can do it, if Terrell can do it, if any of us can do it, you certainly can too. There's nothing holding you back. So the goal today was to give you the tools, but I can't make you use them. Nobody at Hometown can. You got to kind of put your tool belt on and start swinging the hammer, and I'm counting on y'all to do that. So we've got some solid time left, and anybody that knows me knows I can definitely ramble for another 22 minutes with no problem, but I'd rather answer some questions that are things that y'all have been struggling with on a deal, on a relationship, or with real estate in general. And I know it's not cool to speak up and ask questions, but it's very cool today. Come on, Dane. Dane, it says you're not muted, but I can't hear you. Can you guys hear Dane? And I just can't. And you're smart with technology.
Is the mic on his laptop turned on? Or is he using phone for audio?
We're gonna pass on Dane for a few minutes. Oh, are we? Okay.
Or you could put the question in chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the early days hitting specific points, negotiations, right? Those are a little tricky right now. There's a lot to be prepared for up front with negotiations, especially if you've got the buyer. If you have the seller, it's a whole different ballgame. One thing I can tell you is make sure that you're staying current with the market stats, but maybe make sure that you're not presenting the bad information, and that instead you tout the best information about the market. So what I've heard a lot is that inventory's down, right? Like, so great, inventory's down. That's definitely true. But what my brain tells me is that makes it a perfect seller's market, and anybody in my mind that I think is interested in knowing what their home is worth is probably going to want to know at the best time ever. So then things like doing the annual reviews come into play, or doing business in a certain area and calling everybody that you know in that area comes into play. You're calling clients, you're staying in touch with them, but you're also taking steps to try to earn more business in that area from people that you don't know. And then let me read this question here from Mr. Dane Gibson. My answer, okay, so you guys can see, Dane kind of asked what gave me the idea from switching from what I was doing the first 6 years, unfortunately, to what I've been doing maybe for the last 6 or 7. And for me, it was, honestly, it was my wife and the birth of my first son. Before, as a couple, we were really social. Running and gunning was really easy, so there wasn't much need, or it didn't feel like much need for discipline. And I also had a lot of limiting beliefs in those days. I told you about some of them, but the biggest thing that I learned was, first, I have to conquer this fear, or I need to go find something else to do for a living. And if I haven't been successful in 6 years, well, good Lord, what's going to change? got on board with Buffini, I actually won a drawing for a class they called the Peak Producers in those days. I committed myself to just doing everything that it told me to do. Like if Peak Producers said to make 10 calls, as soon as I walk out of class, I made it black and white. I walked out of class, I made the 10 calls. And the good feelings that came from it versus what I was used to for years on end, that gave me the fuel to keep going. From there, the closed transactions kept increasing, but I felt my reputation in the community was getting better. I felt people were seeking me out more. And then my personal favorite was I got to where I didn't have to talk to people quite as much about real estate aggressively because they were coming to me aggressively to talk about it. But when Hayden was born, I knew that I had to be a different kind of dad, a different kind of husband. And I knew I would never be able to do that if I couldn't get some rhyme or reason to how I ran my real estate days. And that's kind of when Larry the Nerd was born.
Quick question for you.
What you got, Terrell?
Here. Both being former athletes, you're still an athlete, of course. Terrell needs to get back.
We miss you.
The first half of your real estate career, we understand it was a huge challenge, right? And it's piggybacking a bit off of you and Dane. What did you do to cultivate the confidence, right? We can have the tools, but, fake it till you make it, as many different methods or approaches. What did you do to really cultivate the confidence to really change the second half besides Buffini and allowing yourself to be vulnerable? That's key, right? You came from wrestling and other sports, very successful. I participated in different sports, but getting into real estate, something completely different when you're at your low point, right? What is it? What's the impetus for you to continue to push on and say, hey, you know what? Let me take the eject button and get up out of here.
Yeah, that's loaded there, man. One of my qualities, being pretty critical of myself, I can list my bad qualities. Like if you have a book, I could list those out for you. But I do feel like one of my good qualities is like I got a fair amount of fight in me. Like I'm not gonna give up on something very easy, no matter what it is. If I've decided that I'm gonna do it. But the most frustrating part, Terrell, was making mistakes. Like I get so frustrated, especially when I make an avoidable mistake, or if I can even trace it back to when I had a lapse of discipline, I caved, and now I'm paying the penalty for it. And so I'm ashamed to say I learned a lot of hard lessons, missed deadlines, missed commitments, and then a few people gave me some pretty hard feedback that, they didn't really feel like I was serious enough to work with them. I didn't seem like I took this stuff seriously. So taking each lesson and saying, okay, I'm angry right now. Maybe I want to blame some other people that are involved in this with me, but where did I fall short? And how can I take action on that next time? And I just feel like I'm a product of that day in and day out. I still make mistakes all the time. I mean, you guys see it, but my goal is when a client sees me, when you guys see me, when we have to tackle that problem the next time, it's almost effortless. We bared the burden when we needed to, but we hit our thumb with a hammer enough, right? Like you just keep hitting it. It hurts. Stop hitting it. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way. But what helped me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, guys, remember so Larry had that list of, pillars to success. He has kind of 13 or 14 things. I mean, when you're getting started in real estate, you got to find what you're good at, what you excel at, what you struggle with, and kind of, from there, put a plan together and say, hey, maybe I'm not so great at working with empty nesters. Maybe I'm better at doing open houses, and commit to that and work on that. And then you gradually get better. You build more confidence. I mean, I think we all struggle when you first start off in real estate. We don't know kind of what the hell we're doing. We're kind of going through the motions and, learning from and seeing what, who's successful in the office. Dane, you talk about, trying to, how'd you flip that switch? How'd you determine what you're going to do next and get the systems in place? Look around who shows up, who's putting the work in, who's successful, who's closing a lot of transactions, who's not closing a lot of transactions. What are those people doing that I'm not doing? Like for me, I did open houses all the time when I first started in real estate, and I talked to a bunch of people who I didn't know. And if I messed up, then who cared? The chances of them buying that house, probably not. If I, I had to, suck it up, and to me, it's 3 hours of training. I may or may not pick up a buyer, but I'm getting better at what I'm doing, and I'm doing it with people I don't know, who I, truly, not that I don't care about them, but if I mess up in front of the random person off the street, oh well, I'll chalk it up to the next one. I'm gonna get better on the next person walks through the door, I'll be better with. So I think a lot of it is just kind of finding your niche in what you like, what you enjoy. I mean, my business has changed. I don't do any open houses anymore, almost. But I've gotten to the point in my business where I'm able to go out there and generate leads in other ways. I committed in, I have a note here on my desk that says, I'm committing to pop buys in 2020. I've committed to just doing pop buys and seeing a ton of people, and I've seen my numbers go, increase. I'm almost already hit my goals for the entire year with another couple of transactions. So I'm way ahead of it, but I committed to doing something. I got better at that. That's what I'm comfortable doing. It's allowed me a lot more free time and just be much more beneficial and intentional with what I'm trying to do.
When Kevin, you're a perfect example of that, man, because you and I have talked over adult beverages before, where there's things we've done that we didn't want to, and quite frankly don't want to do on a daily basis, but because you understand how necessary they are and you've seen the results, it's like, man, I can't not do that. Like I know what I'm losing if I don't. And even though this isn't the fun thing that I want to be doing right now, man, it's the necessary thing. And when Kevin was talking, I wrote something down too. I think since basketball may be the only sport that we get to watch for the unforeseeable future, I want to use a basketball analogy, right? Like you start playing, Little League basketball, you just picked up a basketball, right? You might be the next LeBron James, but nobody knows it that day. You're just trying to learn how to play the game. But your second year of playing basketball, you're better than you were the first because you kept practicing. You found out, like Kevin said, what you were good at. Maybe you drop threes or you're ace at the foul line. So stop taking it to the hole, But year 2, year 3, year 4, if you're doing the right things, no matter what you're doing, you're going to get better. If you continue doing the same things that are producing mediocre or subpar results, there's a very real chance that that'll keep happening for you. But it doesn't have to be that way, guys. It definitely doesn't. But it's kind of all on us and what we decide to do from here.
Hey, Larry, I have a question for you.
Sure.
In the beginning, would you suggest that I focus on, finding out what works for me, what I'm good at, or would you suggest that I look for those more successful people that I jive with well and, become a team member with others right away?
That's a hard question to ask, Davina, because it could go either way. But my personal suggestion on that would be maybe do an accelerated version of looking over those pillars first, right? And be vulnerable with yourself. Ask yourself, hey, how good would I really be at each of these pillars that I say I would be good at? And then what's my plan? If you look at that plan and you feel like it's going to produce some solid results, maybe you don't worry about a team or anything like that, because standing on those pillars might be what you need. But if you look them over and you kind of have those feelings come in on, hey, I feel like these pillars would be easier to achieve with a little bit of support, maybe you talk to somebody on a team at that point. I think it would be good, though, for you to look them over and see what kind of faith you have in running with it and going from there. The only thing I would tell you not to do is don't get analysis paralysis. Set it up as an exercise, put a deadline on it, and rock and roll.
And Davina, a couple of classes we had talked about getting together with other experienced agents in the office. I think that's still something, obviously we're not in the office as much now, but it's still something worth going to do. Go pick the brain of somebody. I think it's good to try out some things and fail at stuff. And that way you kind of, hey, I did not enjoy that at all. I don't want to do that again. Well, that's going to give you a little more drive to go find that next thing where you can really excel at and be better at.
So that's great. Now,
Sweet.
I
All right, guys, you guys.
I appreciate and respect your you fail at that and you make yourself sound, not so smart that one time. That's no big deal, right? well, what are those few things that you should not fail at? Like, what are those few, like, critical things that you cannot, overstep or misstep or misspeak? What should those big things be that make sure these are critical?
5-3-1. That's something I think we talked about in, like I said, the first couple of classes that I harp on. 5 phone calls, 3 handwritten notes, 1 pop by. If you do that, that state gets you in front of a bunch of people. That's, you think about it, it's 25 phone calls a week. That's, pretty good. And it's also very manageable, making it 5 per day. Make your 5 phone calls per day, try to write 3 handwritten notes per day, and then get out and go try to see somebody. You can do all of that within the first hour and a half of your day. The 5 phone calls takes, say average 5 minutes phone call, which is probably on the high side, 30 minutes there, 3 notes. It should take you about, just say 5 minutes a piece, which is very on the high side. That's another 15 minutes there. And then you can run out and go see somebody. You can do all that between 9 and 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And you've just had a great day in real estate. Now go try something else you haven't done before.
Hey, Davina, can you hear me?
Yeah, let's hear it.
You and I spoke on the phone a couple of weeks ago. Remember we talked about a treadmill? You either do it or you don't. It's really simple. You want to hear about simple things. Kevin gives you 5-3-1. You're either going to do it or you're not. And if you're not doing it, the onus there falls on you, period. If I could give you one simple thing that I'll give to everybody as well, if you are one of those people that is consistently late or unprepared, that is 100% your fault. That is a very small thing that you can control. Prime example, I'm not calling anybody out because I don't really remember who, but there was maybe 3 or 4 people that were late to this. It starts at noon, right? That is something very, very small that all of us can do. You're either going to do it or you're not. The best of the best, they don't really believe in the gray area. It's black or white, it's 1 or 0, period, end of story. So when Kevin says 5-3-1, you're either going to do 5 or more calls, you're going to do 3 or more notes, and you're going to do 1 or more face-to-face. Some people do it. Some people do it. Most people are not going to do it. So you're going to be part of the few, you're going to be part of the most. It's your decision.
Yeah.
Thanks,
One
guys.
be part of the
Appreciate
few,
all
right?
that.
And don't be average. It's easy to be average. It takes some discipline to be exceptional, but that's why we work for Hometown. All right, so next class,
Larry,
guys. Yo.
I was going to offer one thing to Davina and then also just had one quick question, although I see we're at 12:55. Davina, one other thing to screw up, the first offer you're writing, you need to have somebody reviewing that and helping you sort of manage through that. Anytime you're contractually, legally binding your client to something, that is an absolute do not screw up. So make sure you've got a mentor to help you out with that. And then my question for you, Larry, I guess is, does your database help you track sort of where you are in the deal, right? You shared a number of great checklists, but like, and this is, I'm just using an Excel spreadsheet right now. The goal at some point, right, is to go to a database, but do you have that sort of outlined where you see like, okay, the deal is in, we're now in pended and now we're moving into inspection and then, making sure that the appraisal is done, things like that. Does your database do that for you? Or do you have
my database as itself it'll take potential, active, pending, sold transactions. But we have whiteboards. Before I had staff, I just had one whiteboard and I had each phase of a deal on it. And so it becomes just kind of a manual checklist. Now, again, I'm very, very fortunate, but now Whitney has got a board that's more dialed in than any board I ever had. And she's got that up in her office. So if you don't have staff, just remember, hey, I did it too. Maybe come up with that dry erase board or the whiteboard, and you guys can do the same thing. It's a good idea though.
Thank you.
All right, next class, guys. Real quick before we get the heck out of here. Next class is going to be strictly Q&A based, and I've got some strategy here. But one thing that we have fallen short on, and I want to be real with you about this, is guys, there's all kinds of stuff out there that we struggle with on a weekly basis. And I know that because I talk to a lot of realtors about it, a lot of Hometown realtors about it. But when we get into these forums, I think a little fear kicks in and we don't feel as comfortable being vulnerable with what we need. So I'm going to spend the next 4 weeks reaching out to sales managers, having them reach out to you guys. And we're literally going to compile a list so that we can have a Q&A that's structured before we even get started. That'll take about 30 minutes. The second part of the segment, I'm going to have a representative from Town First and from MG Law, and they're going to cover some tips on their side of the fence to get you to a smooth closing and to have a smooth loan process. I think that'll be beneficial on both sides of the fence. Perfect way to cap it off and turn you guys over to Benjamin so he can have his way with you. Cool. Well, thank you all for making the sacrifice. Benjamin.
Guys, next class is going to be August the 26th. Is that right, Larry?
Yes, sir.
August 26th, 12 p.m. Let's make it a group goal here that no one will be late. Can everybody who I can see give me a head nod on that? Larry's going to open up the meeting at least 10 minutes early. No one will be late. That's a very small thing that makes a massive difference. Other than that, I think I'm good to go. Great job, guys. Thanks for committing.
Heck yeah. All right. Y'all go out there, crush it. See you next time.
Thank you.